All right. So Nagel Jewish Academy started in 2014. I got a phone call from somebody asking me to start this after-school program. I'll be honest, I had no idea what I was doing or what I was getting myself into. I went to sleep the night before it started, and I said to my husband, if we have 10 kids that show up tomorrow, we had nobody registered. I said, if we have 10 kids that show up tomorrow, I'll feel like I won. I had 2 teachers hired. We showed up the first day of school, and we had 40 kids waiting for us. We went from 40 kids, we finished off that school year with 2 locations and 120 kids, one in the city and one in the valley. Since then we've grown. We now have 6 locations across Los Angeles, 3 in the valley, 3 on the west side, one of which is Nessach. And we, thank God, are growing every year. The school was started to give kids the opportunity to have a Jewish education, even if they couldn't afford it. There are kids that are in public school either because the public school can offer them things that Jewish schools cannot, like services, speech, OT, special services like that. There are kids that are in public school because they just can't afford Jewish day schools. And then there are kids that are in public school just because that's where their parents want them to be. So our after-school program gives them a supplementary Jewish education. So we are up to par with the Jewish day school knowledge-wise. So the Parsha of the week, holidays that come up, Jewish history, learning about davening, learning about prayers, learning all of the regular things that a child would learn in a Jewish day school is taught in our Hebrew school. The kids learn how to read and write Hebrew. We have just introduced a Hebrew language curriculum as well. So once the kids finish learning how to read Hebrew, they're now learning Jewish sight word, like regular sight words and conversational Hebrew as they get older. But our main goal in the Hebrew department is that when our kids leave our program, they should be able to walk into a synagogue, know what's going on, be able to follow along. They should be in Israel, be able to point out things, be able to read. We teach them script writing because that's really what's used nowadays. So they're not really speaking Hebrew, but they are reading and they're able to follow along. Our program starts with kids ages 5 and goes all the way up until 12. In one of our locations, we go all the way up till 13 in the valley, in the Tarzana location, just because it worked out school-wise to go all the way up to that age. But most of our locations really go up till through 5th grade. Our kids love to come, thank God. We hear from parents all the time that we're used as a threat. If you don't behave, I'm not going to send you to Hebrew school, and that works, which is really nice for us. Yeah, I just got a phone call this week from a parent saying, I'm not sure I'm calling the right number, but I looked you guys up. My daughter's friend was over for the weekend and said, you have to send your kids to this Hebrew school, and that's how she found us. So we have a good name amongst the kids, which is great. And we really do our best to just give them a fun, happy Jewish education. I'm really good with questions and answers. If you want to ask me questions, yeah.
Is that your baby crying?
No, my baby's not here.
Oh, okay.
My baby's at home. I don't take him out so much.
So the class that you're offering is 40 kids per class?
No. So we have each location, depending on where it is, has its different amount of classes. The Nessach location has 4 classes right now.
4 classes?
4, yeah. So there's Kita Aleph, Kita Bet, Kita Gimel, Kita Daled. The younger kids have fewer kids in the class. The older classes have like a few more. So the oldest class over there has 17 kids, but the younger classes have no more than 15 kids with 2 teachers.
Is it once a week?
No, it's 4 days a week. It's 4 days a week, and we have a mandatory attendance of 3 days.
How long
That's
is
what I
it?
was gonna ask.
I'm sorry?
How long is the class?
2 hours a day. Yes.
It says here, Adopt a Future for $1,000. Is that $1,000 the cost of one child for 1
So
year?
that's our cost per child per year.
So for every 1,000, it's one child a year.
Yes.
Okay.
So
But
we.
the parents get. Do the parents pay?
Okay, so we ask the parents for $1,000 a year. We are bringing in about 50% of tuition. We're getting 50% of that. The average family child is paying $500 a year per kid.
A year.
Yeah. a
They
year.
don't, they won't even, they can't even give 1,000? Wow.
I think they can or they don't want to.
Right,
I don't know. I'll be honest, I really work on myself to not judge, so we.
But this is your cost,
That's our
$1,000.
cost. That's our cost.
They're asking for 10.
Best answer.
That would be the answer.
Says it all.
But that's your cost if you wanna get a kid 4 days a week, 2 hours, the whole year, it will cost you only $1,000.
Yes, and I'll tell you how. The way we do this is our spaces are all donated. So we call up like the local synagogues in different places, like Ohel Moshe, for example, in Beverlywood they're a great example. Mr. Ebby Cohen, actually, I don't know if anyone knows him.
Yeah.
He called me a year ago and he said, how do I get your program into my shul? Like, what do I have to do? So I went to go see his space. It really needed some renovations. He actually completely renovated a space for us, and we're in there. We don't pay a dime to be there. We have our own cleaners that come in once a week. He offered to have his cleaner clean, but we needed it more often. So we have our cleaners come in once a week to clean. But aside from that, we just have the space free of charge.
And
So,
that's that.
so Nessach, we are only paying over there because we have a locked office.
Yeah.
So that's where our office is. That's like our home base. And that's why we're paying over there, and we're paying pretty minimal for being there. Yes.
How many classes do you have? Like, a better question is, what age ranges are in one class together?
So it depends on the location. Now as our locations are growing, we are dividing the kids more. But the way we had curriculum written specially for us, because there really is no curriculum out there that works for this kind of Hebrew school. So our curriculum is written on a 2-year rotation. So we have 5 and 6-year-olds are learning the same thing, 7 and 8-year-olds, 9 and 10-year-olds, like that.
What did you say, your curriculum's on a 2-year rotation?
Yes, so that way if a child comes in at 5 years old and is in the youngest class for 2 years in a row, they're not learning the same thing for 2 years in a row. He's gonna learn one continuous curriculum over 2 years. Yeah.
Okay.
But aside from just that the spaces that you have are being donated, is it also being subsidized by other funders?
So right now we're privately funded. We have a couple of donors that have stepped up and are privately funding. They're footing like the budget. We do have a fundraiser coming up December 5th, which will have more community members join in and help fund it. Last year we had a charity campaign, like one of those online 24-hour fundraisers that brought in a lot of community
You and every
money.
other organization.
Exactly. We do it at the end of the year though, in May. We don't do it in December. We were able to bring in, money that way. And then we've partnered with the Federation to bring in money from the Federation to help fund this. And this year we actually started partnering with the BJE, the Builders of Jewish Education, and we're really excited to be a part of them as well. We're also about to become a heritage school, which will allow us to apply for government funding as well. Right now we're not getting any government funding, but that's new for us this year, which we're really excited about.
This is truly an example of Jewish education. I'm very proud of you.
Thank you.
Proud of all of you guys that are involved in this. I always wondered how this goes because I hear a lot about it. And as a mother, among a lot of people sitting here and paying thousands of dollars monthly for Jewish
That's all you
education.
Thank you.
Wait a second.
And I always,
getting ripped
me and
off.
my husband always believe it should be offered for free or minimal. And I am so happy and so proud that our organization is doing this because that's truly an example of Judaism and Jewish education.
Thank
So
you.
thank you, I really
Yeah.
appreciate that.
You'll see in the back of the books, you brought up the About a Future. This is a campaign that we started this year, really to open up our, make it possible for really anyone to sponsor a child. So it costs us $1,000 per year. This year, to date, we have 40 new sponsors who have come on any of these donors have given between $1,000 and $5,000 to sponsor between 1 and 5 kids. When they sponsor a child, they get something that looks like this, which is a profile of a child. So it tells you a little bit about the child you are sponsoring. Over winter break, we have progress reports going out, which are really all positive. It just lets you know like what has been taught from the beginning of the year until December, where they're up to, where the child is up to in their Hebrew reading, and just like something nice about the child. So by sponsoring a child, the donor will also receive that progress report. So they really will be able to follow this child throughout the year and really get like an insight of where their money
And
is going.
how do people apply, how do you screen them for these scholarships?
The children?
Like, I'm sure people come there who just don't want to spend the money on Jewish school
Okay,
and are
so,
just going, you know what I mean? They
Um,
still want the education.
The way it works,
It's not very screened.
it's not super screened, but it is more screened than it used to be. When we first started the program, we charged $250 for the year, and anyone who said, I can't pay it, and the donor said, okay, just let them go, we'll be fine. The donor being Mr. Nagel. Now we've gotten a little bit smarter, and when somebody calls up and says, I can't afford it, the first question is, what are you able to pay? We found that generally people will give a higher number than what we would say, instead of us offering.
So you're
like,
not getting like income taxes and.
So we're not collecting, he doesn't want that, but he himself actually makes a lot of these phone calls, the main donor himself.
Can you tell us a little bit about the main donor actually? Mr.
Yeah.
Nagel?
So the way he started this program, or how he started the program, was his kids were in one of the Jewish day schools. He wanted to pull them out and put them into public school and hire a tutor to teach them Hebrew studies. My husband this is actually what my husband does. He's a private tutor for Jewish studies, and he works all day in the Jewish schools teaching kids. So that's actually how I got to know him. He had called my husband, asked him, if he had time available. In the end, he decided not to pull his kids out of a Jewish school altogether, but put his kids into a different private school. But what he realized is that with his after-tax dollars, what he was paying to pay tuition for his kids, he can actually use to educate hundreds of kids. And that's really how this came about. It's how it started, and it's kind of evolved from there. So it really started from, a little small something to something that now has grown. We have we have our own curriculum now. We are in lots of different areas, different neighborhoods, and we're growing, thank God.
I know you guys don't give tests, so there's not really like any metrics of measuring how much they learn or not, which could be a good thing for the kids because they're not stressed. But has it ever happened that somebody started at Nagel and then the family decided to take them to full-time Jewish school?
Yeah. So we have to date, this is actually my proudest, because this is my personal goal, is to really get all these kids into a Jewish school. Emek is phenomenal. I should just give them a shout out. They really will work with parents who can't afford a Jewish day school, and they've proven it time and time again. But we have, to date, we have 52 kids who have left our program to go to Jewish school, which is great. Yeah.
I just on the show.
Yeah.
That's
It's my proudest, that's my accomplishment. That's where I feel like I accomplished
Wow.
something. So these kids who have moved from our schools, they're behind in Chumash. That's really where they're behind. Davening, they're up to par. We start them out with transliterated Siddurim so that they can really learn how to read Hebrew, daven in Hebrew from the moment they enter our program. But by the time they leave, they're really they're able to read and write Hebrew fully. They know all the information, like my child who's in a regular Orthodox day school learns the same information about Hanukkah that the kids in our Hebrew school. We have enough time to teach them. In an average Sunday school, they're learning for an hour a day, an hour a Sunday. They're going to learn Hebrew language for an hour and about tradition for an hour. In our Hebrew school, they're learning tradition for 4 hours a week, Hebrew language for 4 hours a week. So they are able to move in, and they do need tutoring, but it's minimal. It's not the same. So we actually, in the Beverlywood area, we have a lot of our kids are with us for until fifth grade, and then after 5th grade, they move into a Jewish day school. Yes.
Just, this is for me and for me. What time do you teach the Jewish school here in Mensa?
From 3 to 5. If you would ever want to come by, I would love to walk you around, with pleasure.
And it's only in Los Angeles, right? It hasn't gone to other cities?
So I actually flew out to St. Louis. We had a donor who wanted to open up a location in St. Louis. And then the rabbi who we were going to open it at, his father passed, and it kind of was put on the back burner, but now we're in talks to go back to that. Yeah.
What happens in 6th grade if they don't go to private Jewish school? Are you guys thinking about that?
So we've thought about it, and we've tried a few different things. So far, we haven't found anything that works, mainly because in the Los Angeles area, the middle schools are really spread out, and by the time the kids get home, it's really hard to like motivate them to get back.
Our major high schools are still trying to figure it out, so.
It almost sounds like too good to be true that these kids, after a full day of school, are coming for 2 hours, 4 days a week.
Yeah.
What is that? How are you doing that?
Okay, so a lot of the way we run the school is incentive based for starters. So the kids come, they dive in, they get a sticker. When they have their own personal sticker charts, they have a class incentive, which will be a pizza party or an ice cream party, something like that. That alone keeps kids motivated. Another, if you look at the front picture, you'll see there's one picture of kids holding sponges in bathing suits. This was when we learned the Parsha Noach with the flood. And instead of just learning it, okay, there was a flood, we had what we called a mabul party, a flood party. So the kids came to school and it was like a big water fight. So we do a lot of things like that that just keep kids excited. Another,
It's more play business weekend.
yeah, something really important to me is that the teachers notice the kids. And we actually use the words "I notice." So a child will come into school and you'll say, "Oh my goodness, I noticed you're wearing such a sparkly shirt today," or "I noticed you got a haircut." And what we found is that kids really want to be noticed, and then they feel really good about themselves, and then they want to be there every day. So that's really been valuable.
Also, our kids are in school till 4,
I
and
use
they
it
come
with
out
my
and do
own
after
kids.
school
I'm
activities.
doing that.
So
I
they
do
get
use
out
that.
at 2:30. No, I know, but I'm saying
It depends on the
get out.
location.
They get out earlier.
Nessach is 100% Persian. The Beverlywood location is, I would say, probably 20% Persian, and the rest either Israeli or American. The Valley is pretty much Israeli. So it really just kind of depends on the demographic.
Is your program at potential? How many kids can you take versus how many do you have?
So I'm under orders to never turn a kid away. So Mr. Nagel just always tells me, he says, you just hire more staff.
And are you advertising anywhere, or do they just come to you?
So up until now, we don't advertise a lot. Mostly it's word of mouth. We are discussing marketing now for the first time. We feel like it's important for a few different reasons. So we are going to start, but we haven't up until now.
Especially for donors.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
Awareness.
how many students have you had?
Come through our doors.
Yeah.
I don't have an exact number, but I would say we probably have 600 kids walk through our doors.
Okay, so we're gonna have one more question and then we have to wrap it up. So last
So
question.
mean.
So bossy.
So they come in, they're exhausted,
Why isn't she in
all
the
those hours of school, but they're learning through play.
Yeah, the older kids, there is a little bit more of sitting and listening, but we do our best to do a lot of play and movement. We have, once a month, we have teachers' meetings where all of our staff come together from all of the different locations. They get their curriculum for the upcoming month, and then we have some sort of professional development. Depending on the month, sometimes it's a little bit longer, sometimes it's a little bit shorter. This month, we have somebody coming in who will really work on different ways to teach the same material over. So Hanukkah, Purim is the same story. You hear the same story every year. we don't want the kids to get bored of learning about these holidays, so we have somebody coming in and, you know, just kind of teaching us how to teach it in more exciting ways, different and more exciting ways.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
Daniela knows how to reach me.